Weasel is a good representation of some sort of mic jockey.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's funny, you guys, you're bringing up weasels because there are too many weasels on the internet, and in fact, they've infected the pipes that contain the internet. So I've decided to shut down the internet.
Oh man, you're gonna shut down those wily weasels?
Yeah, I apologize for any inconvenience this might cause, but after this episode goes up, we're shutting down the internet. And here's why. So, just a little background for you. I don't know if you guys have been keeping up, but Fiona Apple released an album. You guys may be familiar. She's kind of a big deal. I'm not huge into her, but we'll get into that later. So she put out a new record. Anthony Fantano, my favorite music critic, released his review of her record, and it was mostly positive. It was how did he put it, Paul? He's you had a good summarization of it.
Well, he didn't seem to say anything too bad. It seemed to be he was talking about there were some really great inspired moments, punctuated by some really annoying gimmicky bullshit, and that's sort of how I felt about it.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with that statement. But I think the issue here is Pitchfork and mostly the rest of the collective music critic internet just adorned this album with the greatest praise that has ever been given. Pitchfork gave Fiona Apple's new album a 10 out of 10, which has only happened a handful of times in the history of their website. The Metacritic, I think, is currently sitting at 100, which is, I don't think, ever happened for a modern music release. So
yeah, it's the Citizen Kane of albums.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Both user critics and full album, internet critics. And it's interesting because here's the kicker is people who, and this is, could be just be chalked up to shitty people on the internet, but people who tend to disagree with this album's praise are now being called misogynists for having this point of view. And particularly Anthony was lambasted with criticisms of misogyny and the fact that he is not a female, so he would never be able to understand the record. Like, I get that sentiment on a basic level. Like, sure, he's not going to immediately understand what it's like to be raped or what it's like to be oogled, walking down the street. But on the other hand, he's a famous music critic that regularly reviews female-based records and female-led bands and lots of things related to that sort. He's a very diverse album critic. I don't understand why he wouldn't be able to understand it.
Yeah, conceptually, I'm sure he can. It's not like he can empathize with it, but he can certainly understand it.
Right, exactly. And even if he misses something, like, I don't think it's the fault of a critic to understand literally every reference that goes into an album. Like,
right, but that's the other thing too, is if it plays into social issues, and I get it, music is intertwined with that because that's the inspiration for a lot of the lyricism, but it's sort of, I don't know. I think it's really ingenious by all the internet weasels because they found the perfect pairing, or at least the perfect artist to take this angle with. Her biggest hit of her entire career is a song about stepping on some guy's balls and just crushing his soul. And he deserves it because we're angsty and it's the 90s and men are garbage. Am I right, guys?
Yes.
I mean, that is true. But the funny thing is like I didn't find that he even criticized the content of her like lyricism. Like I didn't, unless I missed that, I didn't catch that once in his review. It was more so the fact that like all the reviews are saying this is something we've never heard before, and she's doing experimental stuff that's never been done. And his point was kind of just like, this has been done. We have heard this. Like it's still very good. But he just didn't agree with that point of view because he's heard a lot of music and has recognized that there's been similar things and similar experimental things, and the gimmicky stuff like dogs barking isn't brilliant, genius like musical work.
Right. He doesn't talk about any of the social aspects.
But yeah, he never criticized, exactly. He didn't criticize any of her lyricism or social context or anything like that. So I don't get the argument that he can't see her point of view. Like that's not what he was arguing.
Well, I think I think that point is specifically attached to the fact that he never touches on the album title and where it comes from.
Okay.
And that's the funniest part about this whole fucking thing is the album title comes from a like, I don't want to say unknown. I think it's lesser known. It's a British murder crime drama TV show.
Right.
And it's one of the characters literally just says in the season finale of one of these, seasons, says fetch the bolt cutters because they're allegedly going to cut out this girl who's been kidnapped and, so on and so forth. So like there's a whole history behind that and everything, but no one, that's not immediately obvious until the artist came out and said, hey, here's where it's from. Or someone had put two and two together and was like, oh, I think this is what, fetch the bolt cutters means. Which in that case, you still wouldn't know 100% until Fiona Apple comes out and says, hey, fetch the bolt cutters is from this episode of this TV show. So it's ridiculous to just, immediately criticize him for not understanding the quote unquote meaning of the album title when that wasn't supplied by the artist at all.
Right.
So the whole thing is just fucking ridiculous and makes me angry at the internet. But
oh yeah, I feel like we're playing into it by talking about it. But when you take down the internet and salt the earth, I think
we're gonna start
have the last laugh.
We're starting fresh.
And all that's to say that it's not a bad album. It's still a great album. All he was trying to say was it's not the best album of all time.
Right.
That's literally it.
And that is obviously directly opposed to most people's viewpoints, or maybe not even most people, but the vocal majority. And because it's about like I forget which one of you was just saying that it's intertwined with social issues. Because it's about that stuff, it's obviously going to get way more attention,
right?
And stuff like that. So
I was just gonna, if you look at the Metacritic scores, it went the same way as a lot of movies. I think the actual user scores are more in line with where it should sit, like 80 to 90 out of 100.
Absolutely.
It's only these writers for publications that we, go-to publications for music, like the Washington Post and Guardian, that are trying to give it 100.
And the interesting thing, like you could get in that we could record a whole episode about how Metacritic is biased and wrong, because a 100 to me, it should be an average aggregate of all the scores available. And
right. They weight it differently depending on your publication.
Exactly.
Like publication.
If you look at the critic list, there are not a unanimous 100. There's a couple lower scores. So that score should not be 100, even if you're taking into account user scores, which, Paul, like you mentioned, is a little more varied and not, perfect 10. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a fault of Metacritic or the site or anything like that. I just think it's interesting that people are probably piling on to something that they don't even understand fully.
Yeah, catch us talking about the same thing with Chappelle's Sticks and Stones on our comedy podcast, which we found it.
comedypoint.house. That is comedypoint.haus. And it is Wednesday.
Buying that domain as we speak.
Yes, Wednesday, May 6th, 2020. It is season 3, episode 5 of Bliss Point, a podcast and website serving up music discussion, news, show and album reviews, and more. Check us out at bliss.house. That is bliss.haus. My name is Jordan Kaufman, and I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Billy Gatewood.
Hello.
And Paul Kolb.
Hi, Jordan Kaufman.
Hey, fellas. So if you couldn't tell already, we're kind of shooting for a new direction, and I'm hoping... I'm very excited by this direction. I'm hoping that you guys enjoy it as well. And without spending too much time on the nitty-gritty, we're going to jump right into shows. That's pretty self-explanatory. What concerts have we been to? And it's funny because I know, Paul, you had put in the show notes on one of the episodes we were working on that no, everybody's at home. What the fuck are we doing? But Billy found the time to sit on his toilet or in his bed or something to watch Glen's 50th birthday party.
You're darn right I did.
He definitely wasn't wearing pants.
And is that Glen Hansard, correct?
That is Glen Hansard, and he did a little special 50th birthday live stream. He was planning to spend some time in Italy with friends, but obviously he can't do that. So he was gracious enough to spend some time with people on the internet. And it was about an hour. He played some incredible stuff, dating back to old frame stuff, as well as like solo stuff and 12 season stuff. So it was a really good, diverse set list for the first half hour or so.
Okay.
Then there was a little special guest, Eddie Vedder, stopped in.
No shit, really?
Interrupted the live stream to wish Glenn a happy birthday, and he had wrote him this nice long poem, and kind of just
happy birthday.
had this back and forth for about 30 minutes. So it's actually kind of cool, even though you didn't get to see him spend the whole hour, playing songs. It was kind of cool to see their back and forth interaction, and they told some stories about time touring together and everything like that. And you can tell they're just genuine good friends.
That's
that
cool
to know each other over the years. So, and I know Glenn's always idolized Eddie, and it seems like it's vice versa. Eddie idolizes Glenn. So to see them kind of exchange stories and stuff like that was really cool to see.
It's funny, I never would have pegged the two of them to be friends, just because they come from such different circles. But it makes sense that Glenn would idolize him. I mean, he's a great and prolific songwriter.
Yeah.
And so, did Glenn just play acoustic?
Yeah, he just played acoustic. Well, actually, I take that back. He did play electric. Some clean electric. He played Star, some old frame stuff, which that was one of the highlights I thought. But yeah, he played some clean electric, some acoustic, and I believe he might have played one or two on the piano as well.
Nice.
Yeah, but it was cool. It was nice.
Yeah, I'm hoping to actually check out. Porter Robinson is putting together a virtual festival this weekend, and it's not through Minecraft or anything. I think they're just streaming it, so I want to check that out.
How novel.
And see what the world is about. So now let's jump into singles. These are the best singles we've heard this last few weeks. Hopefully, they are attached to an album very soon, especially in the case of these great songs that we've picked this week. So my single is Places Plans by Skullcrusher.
Man, I thought your tries were looking good.
Yeah, if at first glance I thought this was going to be a metalcore song or death metal or something, and it's the complete opposite.
Yes, it is.
Crazy Phoebe Bridgers vibes, just her and acoustic with a soft piano kind of build up. Very simple song that is just kind of beautiful in its sparseness. And I want to know what y'all think.
Loved it.
Yeah,
it hadn't come across any of my things, any of my new release lists or anything like that. So I was scrolling through the playlist earlier, just listening to some stuff, knowing that was going to be the one you wanted to talk about, and I loved it.
Yeah, it has me very excited. And apparently, I think this is just her first effort. She hasn't really done anything before. I think she has kind of changed professions and has decided to do the dumbest thing is she was like, I think I want to try music and see how that goes. And I'm like, is that a thing that you do? You're like, I want to, quit my job and work on music full time, even though I've never done music before. So props to her. She did great.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And what's this Midnight Love track, Billy? What you got?
So kind of in the same vein, Girl in Red, song is Midnight Love. She's a 21-year-old Norwegian bedroom emo pop artist that just released her first single from her upcoming debut album. I'm new to her music, but apparently I'm late to the party. Some of her singles have upward of 70 million listens.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, so I'm clearly late to that. But this single definitely left me excited for the album. She's got a really nice, intimate storytelling, lyrical ability that I love in any kind of songwriter. But it's very much the same kind of vibe where it's just that slow, ambient emo music that I love.
I really love the pluck strings. You don't hear those a lot on this type of music, which is you usually peg that as an Andrew Bird kind of thing. But this was a really nice usage of those, and they weren't really overdone either. So
yeah, so I'm excited to see what she's got in store as well.
Krangbin.
Oh man,
Am I pronouncing that correctly? Do you know?
I've been saying Khruangbin, but I have no idea.
That probably sounds more accurate. But yeah, Paul, you want to give us a little intro about Mr. Group
Group Khruangbin.
Group
Yeah,
Krong.
so it came out with a new single called Time, and I mean it's pretty much what I've come to expect from these guys. They come out with a really psychedelic kind of 70s guitar sound mixed with funk. And what I've realized about myself, I was telling Billy, is the thing that's been missing from my psychedelic funk is kind of zero energy white girl chanting. And that's precisely what they do. I love it.
It's funny that that's what kind of tipped you over the edge. But it's these guys are great. Like I'm super stoked for their next record. I think they're a classic, like summery, psychedelic, old school soul kind of sound. So I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, I was stoked you picked this song, Paul, because I love this song. I like them a lot. So I'm stoked that you gave it some recognition because it's real good.
Yeah, they're really solid. I think they had one single maybe back 2017 or so that was used for a lot of TV and movies, but they weren't getting a lot of love beyond that. If you haven't checked out their Tiny Desk concert from around that time, I'd definitely take a look.
Oh, I will definitely do that. I have not watched that, so I will check that out after this.
Speaking of good singles, this
An
week
enthusiastic face is not allowed in this band.
I found so many good singles this week. So please look back to the playlist that we created with all the singles. There's a lot of good stuff on there. This was one week in particular. I had a really hard time picking just one to talk about.
Yes.
If you're looking for some new music, please check out that playlist.
Yeah, I had the same issue. I had to cut it down to 10 total. So it was or 5 rather. So it was rough for me as someone who listens to a lot of music. And speaking of music, we have some more great albums coming on the way with our shout outs. These are going to be albums that we may have just missed the cut for our album of the weeks, or we just haven't really had a chance to go knee deep into yet. And this first one we kind of already touched on, so I'll keep it brief. But Fiona Apple, Fetch the Bolt Cutters, new album. Lots of praise for this record, and her in general, and I think rightfully so. As someone who honestly has never really listened to a Fiona record until now, I kind of get the hype, and I tend to agree with Paul's summation and Anthony's summation that this album tends to rely on like weird experimental things a little too much, that I think detracts from a lot of the beautiful songwriting and the just incredible production. Like the opening track, I forget the name of it, but it is just like it's just piano, but the production on the piano is insane. Like
it's so cool.
For sure, for sure.
It's one of the best sounding pianos I've heard this year at least. And it's a weird record. Like it's kind of all over the place. She has grittier songs. Piano is kind of a mainstay throughout. It's kind of jazzy. It kind of gets poppy. And it's overall just, I think, a really solid record from her, even if I don't understand the lyrics. But yeah, favorite song is Heavy Balloon, by far. And up next, what you got?
So, I picked this one hoping that that Paul might be able to chime in a little bit too.
I'm sorry I failed you and technology failed me.
But Spotify is unreliable. It's okay. But my pick was Gavin Dance, Afterburner. Historically, I don't like Dan7 Dance. They can be a bit overwhelming. I often say they're a little too talented for their own good. Sometimes it seems like they get bored and they're just trying to write the craziest thing they can think of.
Definitely.
And then there are the lyrics, because they're just straight trash.
Yeah.
I don't understand how Tillian is a part of that band. But all that said, I do like this album a little bit more than I've liked their last albums. Lyrics Lie is probably one of my favorites. It's pretty consistent, like mathy pop, hardcore. It's got some bits of like hardcore and screaming in it that I enjoy. There's also an interesting like Latin infused song, complete with Tillian singing in Spanish. And it's actually pretty great. It might be one of the best songs on the album.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of good.
I hate that.
And
song.
then Nothing Shameful and Three Wishes are also solid if you can get past the millennial woos and the repeated screaming of multiple stab wounds, during the bridge.
Billy, you have my word. I'm going to check this one out. And I will say, just on my prior engagements with this band, it's like an Eric Johnson album. You're really there for guitar, and you're just gritting your teeth and bearing through the vocals.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, the guitar, bass, and drums are all so extraordinary. It's really overshadowed by these terrible lyrics and vocals. But, like, if you're there for the instrumentation and just, like, the song structure and how crazy it is, it's spot on.
Yeah, it's a weird record. I certainly agree with especially all the guitar stuff. Like, I love the guitars. I think Tillian's really talented, but is just kind of annoying at the end of the day. My main gripe with this record, oddly enough, is I think the production sucks.
The production does suck. It's real weird. You would think they'd have more money.
Yeah, like everything sounds super flat and just kind of bland. So it's kind of upsetting. I would love to see those guitarists in a better environment with maybe more money. So
yeah, I'm curious if it's a weird stylistic choice where they're just like, I don't know, super pretentious and don't believe in effects or something like that, and good production. I don't know.
Lo-fi, because that's what the kids want.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's real weird, but the production is terrible.
Yes, agreed. LULU.
Oh man,
and her favorite album coming up next.
Lulu's not a person, Jordan. It's an album.
Oh, so who's that?
Want to make sure you understood. So this is a collaboration between Conway the Machine and the Alchemist. And I mean, anyone who listens knows how I feel about the Alchemist. I don't think he's ever produced an album that didn't have really solid beats, really solid hooks, really cool melodies and sampling. But the thing that was new to me was Conway the Machine is a Buffalo-based rapper. And if you're into that 90s gangster rap sound, you definitely need to check this one out. My favorite track was one called Shoot Sideways. You just get Wu-Tang vibes off this track specifically, and a lot of moments throughout. Like that same 90s gangster rap, it does fall short in places. Mostly for me, the choruses get a little bit stunted. You kind of wish they just put in a sample of an actual singer. But if you like that period in time and the genre, I'd definitely check it out.
Yeah, I think my biggest disappointment is just the Schoolboy Q feature was such a tease. Like,
yeah,
he kept doing the hook, and I was like, all right, where's the Schoolboy Q verse?
Nope,
where is it?
that.
Where?
That.
No, that's it. But yeah, I completely agree, Paul.
Did you say that Mr. Conway the Machine is part of one of those new secret rap cabals, much like the Illuminati?
Right now, because I don't want to sound like an idiot. Yes. So Conway the Machine is part of the Griselda rap collective. His older brother, he is the older brother of Westside Gunn, who is another pretty famous rapper. Yeah. He just
I saw he was a feature on like his previous release. I didn't realize they were related.
Yep, they are related, and they're part of like a collective that is just, very boom bap 90s grimy, hip hop. So if you like this, you would definitely like anything attached to the Griselda name. Albums of the week. These are going to be the best albums we've heard all week, or maybe the last 2 weeks. These are easy locks for our Album of the Year tournament, or our personal Album of the Years. And my Album of the week is Sawayama by Rina Sawayama. I'm gonna run down this list for you guys.
Please explain, Jordan. Please explain.
I want you to raise your hand, metaphorically, of course, if you like the following things. Do you guys like K-pop? Okay, nice show of hands. I like it. How about Evanescence? Definitely good show of hands.
You're not being honest. Put them up.
How about Korn? Where are we at with Korn?
Only when he DJs.
Only when he DJs. Okay.
Yeah, when who DJs?
The lead singer.
Jonathan Davis. Britney Spears. Any takers? Yes. Okay.
I will raise my hand for Britney Spears. That's okay.
Britney Spears is great. And what about Justin Timberlake? No?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like you guys are mostly on board with this record, but maybe Billy isn't. I don't know. I love this record. It is a modern kind of pop record in the vein of like Charlie. I think the production is obviously way different than Charlie because Charlie's way more electronic and glitchy, and this is like a weird mix of nu metal and 90s pop and K-pop and just a bunch of different things. And I think she melds them all really well. And I just can't stop coming back to like the catchier songs like Excess and Dynasty and Shut the Fuck Up, which we've heard previously, is just a great nu metal. Alkhasaka Sad is very Justin Timberlake vibes. And it's just love it. I'm a big fan.
That makes one of us.
Billy.
No, this has been popping up everywhere for the last like 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, she's getting
I've tried to listen to it, and I get maybe 3 songs in every time, and I just got to turn it off.
What do you hate about it?
It's just kind of obnoxious. I don't know if there's any other way I can really describe it.
It is. I could see the obnoxious in that I think it is maximalist in a way. Like I don't think this album does trades in subtlety very well. Like
I just didn't think like for all those people that you mentioned leading up, like they're very catchy things that they do, whether I like it or not. Like I can admit that it's catchy.
Sure.
I didn't get that with this. Like I didn't see what the hooks and catches were besides it just being in your face pop.
Oh, loved it. Well, that's totally fair, and I completely understand your arguments, and I appreciate you being rational about it. And because you've been rational, I'm going to reward you with you explaining this next album.
Okay. I'm not going to be able to do a very good job of that, unfortunately. This is one that I was looking forward to for quite a while. And so I threw it into my album of the week discussion, and unfortunately it's not as good as I wanted it to be. But it's Hazel English, Wake Up. She's exchanged her like reverb saturated dream pop for like a more established California 60s pop vibe with her new album.
Disco?
What's that?
Would you say it's picnic disco-ish?
Somebody explain this genre to me.
I wouldn't go so far as saying picnic disco, but I would say this is maybe Lana Del Rey. Just Lana Del Rey, right?
I mean, I could see the like psychedelic, 60s rock vibes, and I could see that comparison maybe, like for newer Lana.
Yeah. So it's definitely way more like upbeat, but it's just got that like breezy, like California 60s, like pop rock vibe with like breezy guitars and vocals and stuff like that. Her lyrics are pretty straightforward. There's nothing really subtle about it. It's just, a commentary on how she feels about the world and love and everything like that. It's a solid album. I've always liked Hazel English in relation to like her work with like Daywave and coming up in that kind of like shoegaze dream pop scene. And this was just a drastic change from what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, I had never heard of her, and going into this, with no expectations whatsoever, I was definitely pleasantly surprised. I really, really like this record a lot.
Good.
Yeah, I like her style, the melding of like hazy dream pop with, like you said, like the 60s kind of psychedelic rock and a little bit of doo-wop, honestly, especially on Five and Dime, which is mid 20th century reference. So yeah, I think it's a solid record.
It's got some really good production value, and like it clearly had a lot of minds behind it. It's well thought out. It's just stylistically not what I was expecting.
That's totally fair. And I don't know if this is more or less what I was expecting, but I'm totally okay with this next record. Paul, if you wanna give the rundown.
And I'm glad that you find this acceptable. So, Elder came down from on high, and they released a new album, Omens. It's polished, riff-driven rock, sensibly fuzzed-out guitar, and unapologetically long tracks, as I would put it. You know, I haven't spent enough time with this album to kind of get a sense of any deeper, or rather, figure out if the lyrics have any deeper meaning to me. I just know that they're sort of inoffensive and they don't get in the way of just the guitar riffs that I'm there for. And to call this genre riff-driven kind of seems like a cop-out anyway, but it probably speaks to the state of music, at least for me, that's such a push for how I describe it. Is that making any sense?
Absolutely.
Like, rock should always be riff-driven, but these guys just do a tremendous job with the song structure, the production, and I'm digging it.
Yeah, it's not your I obviously, I think when I was describing it to you, I think I exactly used like guitar-driven rock, which seems ridiculous on paper, but it makes sense because it's not based around vocals, it's not based around verse, chorus, verse, that sort of structure. It is very jammy, it is very psychedelic. It kind of reminds me of Mastodon a lot. Not as much like hard edge.
Not as heavy, but
I fucking love this record. I think the only thing that I don't like is the vocals, but they feel so secondary to literally anything else in the record that I'm willing to just overlook them.
Yeah, it's a sad way to describe it, and I hope not offending them, but it stays out of the way of the instrumentation.
Yeah,
and as long as you're not afraid of a track that clocks in over 10 minutes, of which there are at least 4 on this record.
Yeah,
there's only like 6 tracks because of how long they are, but I think it's the perfect driving companion.
Yeah, it's fucking great. If you're curious about the rest of the singles and albums that we talked about today and the ones we didn't, there'll be a playlist up on the site containing all the singles and the best tracks from this week's albums. That site is bliss.house, bliss.haus. Check us out on all the places podcasts are listened to or ignored, like, subscribe, follow, etc. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, love everybody. And that site, if you couldn't pick it out of the haze, is bliss.house. That's bliss.haus. And thank you.
Medicine.
Huh? What'd you say?
I said thank you to Cold Medicine.
Oh, shout outs to Cold Medicine for keeping the coughs locked down, I guess.